Hey everybody, it's Curse, and today I'm going to bless you with a stash organization guide slash showcase. A lot of people have asked me to do this over the months, and I figured since I'm switching to D4 soon, maybe I'll try to do this real quick and get it out before I'm playing D4 full time basically. So, when you get a brand new character, you won't have all these stash tabs that I have. You just have one or two stash tabs. I can't even remember. But you won't have very many. But you can buy more, and the first few are very cheap. So it's very important to try and organize your stash tabs as efficiently as possible early on so that you can save time later on. And the way to do that is by categorizing different groups efficiently and then putting the right kind of items within each group and just making it easier for your future self when you find new items. You want to just dump them back into your stash quickly. So to make a new category, you can use this button here, and it's pretty straightforward. It adds a category. You don't need to pay gold for it. You can have as many categories as you want, or maybe there's a limit to it, but I haven't reached it. So you can have plenty of categories, a sufficient amount to do whatever you wish with. You can color code them. And so I like to color code mine to represent whether I'm storing exalts in there or uniques or class specific stuff. So the first thing I would recommend when you start a new season or start a new begin the game from scratch basically, I would recommend creating one category for every single character type. So I have, as you can see, one for mage, one for Akko, druid, sentinel, rogue. And then I have stash tabs underneath. And as you get gold, ideally you can start creating stash tabs there once you accumulate enough items for that class type. So for example, at the beginning, you won't need a stash tab inside your mage category. You can just keep it in a generic temporary stash tab. But once you accumulate, let's say, a quarter of a stash tab that is mage specific, I would say go ahead and create yourself a brand new stash tab in here and just dump everything. And as you acquire more and more items that are specific to that class, you want to start organizing your stash tabs in a way that they're easier to work with. So you can see I have idol specific stash tabs underneath mage, and these are all mage specific idols. Next I have helms for mage, and you can see I have quite a few tabs, 3 tabs, because I farmed helms, many times. Helm day is my favorite day of all. And then I have a special tab just for fractured crowns. You can see my best one right here. And then relics. I don't have nearly as many as I would have thought I would have. And then chest pieces. Make sure to organize the different items next to each other so that they're easy to find based on implicit types. So you can see all of these are percent increased mana. So if I'm doing a build that requires percent increased mana as an implicit in the chest piece, I know exactly what to look for. Just these 14 chest armors, nothing else. And if you need critical strike avoid, these are the ones you look at. So organizing your stash tabs can just make things a lot easier for you. So that is for the class specific tabs. I also have 2 tabs that are more general, and I leave a lot of extra stuff in here that is, let's say, spell mage, aka sorcerer specific. And so stuff like cast speed while you have lightning ages, I like to keep these organized in here just so I can pick them up nice and quickly when I'm doing redoing a certain build. And then certain items from builds that I've tried before. So these, for example, are my items for my static orb, static ground build. I know exactly where to find them if I want to revisit that build. And I have some class specific set items so that I don't take up other stash space, and class specific uniques as well. For my general category here, I like to have one temporary tab where I just dump stuff when I don't have time to organize it, or if I want to switch items from one class to another, or if I'm just in the middle of trying out a new build and I want to leave the items from my previous build somewhere without actually breaking them apart, just because they go together as a set in a way. These items together make a certain kind of build. So that's how I use these temporary stash tabs. So all these right here, for example, are my crit manifest armor build. I know where to find them easily. I didn't have stash in my sentinel tab. That's why they ended up in these temporary ones. And somehow, unfortunately, sometimes temporary becomes permanent. You want to avoid that as much as possible. So I don't set the perfect example here. But then I have a couple of set stash tabs. And you can see these are all the set items in the game, except some class specific ones that ended up in these 5 category ones. And I don't like to keep more than 1 or 2 per item, just because, once you have one that's perfectly rolled, it's not getting any better. You don't even need to look at them, to be honest with you, because there is no, LP RNG with set items. So they're pretty easy to max out. Then I have idols that can be applied and utilized by every single class. So you can see these ones here that give you vit and res, or vit and damage, as well as these ones that give armor or mana or health, these 1x1s. And same thing here, just 1x1s or 2x1s that give you, that can be utilized by every single class. And then I have amulets and rings that can be used by every single class again. And honestly, I would almost consider putting these 5 tabs in a brand new category that is jewelry specific exalted items. So that is one change I would like to implement. So I can show you how I would do that right now. Jewelry. And then you can just move it nice and easy. Here we go. Amazes has been moved. Done. And this way we keep things clean. Now, the only change I would implement to this organizational system here is I would split out my tier 7 amulets and rings into 2 separate stash tabs. So I would like to have tier 7 amulets stash tab, as well as tier 7 rings stash tab. Because when you're trying to build, the first thing you're going to look through are the tier 7s. You don't care as much about the tier 6s. If you run through your tier 7s and there's nothing good that you like, let's say, for example, you're looking for void res, well, next thing you want to check for the tier 6 void res. But yeah, it's much easier to find tier 7s if you have them split out. This is something that I'm lacking here. Strongly recommend that, especially for jewelry, because jewelry, it does make sense to pick up a lot more tier 6ers than other items, than weapons, for example, because with weapons, you frequently know exactly the type of bonus that you want. And so you're just going to want tier 7 of that prefix or suffix or whatever it is. Whereas with rings, they're much more balanced in a way where you can have 4 affixes that you benefit from. And so even if it's a tier 6 affix somewhere, you might still end up using it if the other 3 affixes are solid. So I'm much more likely to pick up tier 6 rings and amulets than tier 6 weapons. They also take less space, so there's less of an opportunity cost to pick them up. So that's it for the general tab here. Then Acolyte. Then I have Acolyte, similar thing. I have a spell and summoner extra items. Extras here for specific builds. So this, for example, might be my Bone Golem build right here. And then, oh, I don't know how these ended up here. I should organize these. You can see sometimes I get lost and forget to clean up my stuff. And then idols, chest pieces, helms, relics, neatly organized per type. Then I have Druid and Druid specific uniques here. A few relics that I haven't had a chance to create a tab for. You can see I only have 9 exalted relics so far. So I haven't bothered creating an extra tab and paying that 1.2 mil for that extra tab. But as these grow, if I play Primalist, for example, if these become like 20, I'll probably create a stash tab. I mean, you have to. Otherwise, you just can't deal with it. You can see I have my Herald of the Scurry over here under pets. Somehow I have another Boulder Wrath. Let's bring it over here. And then helm and chest pieces. Despite not playing Primalist, I get these every now and then with other classes. Sentinel. you can see some Sentinel specific stuff. Idols, chest, helm, and relics. Rogue, similar situation here. Idols, chest, relic, helm. And then we get into weapons, armor, and jewelry. So for weapons, I have my one-handed axes, 2 tabs as you can see. When you start the game, you're only going to need 1 tab. But as you find more and more items, eventually you're going to need more and more tabs. At the beginning of the game, you'll be picking up tier 6 prefixes and suffixes as well as tier 7s. But as the game goes on and you acquire more and more items, at some point you're going to reduce the rate at which you pick up tier 6s. And then at some point you're going to reduce the rate at which you pick up tier 7 chill on hit, like this axe right here. That is not a very useful suffix. I like to have even these garbage suffixes at tier 7. Every now and then I like to pick them up and keep them. Part of it is because I'm a hoarder, but part of it is because you never know what kind of patches EG are going to roll out. Like with the most recent patch, they added an item, a relic for Rogue, that benefits from the chest to find a potion prefix. And so thanks to my hoarding mentality, I have a bunch of those rings and amulets and belts at tier 7. So I can quickly create a build leveraging those items as soon as I find that relic. So then I do 2-handed axes, 1-handed maces. Somehow I've managed to keep it at just 1 tab. You can see once I hit 1 full tab, sometimes I just start deleting ones that I don't like. You know, something like a tier 6 melee attack speed, I might delete this one. However, it is a perfect roll. I would be more inclined to keep it. There are certain prefixes that are way more valuable than other prefixes, like melee attack speed, like base crit chance, I think is super valuable. So those ones I would be more willing to keep at tier 6 perhaps, especially if I have a combination of, let's say, tier 6 melee attack speed and a tier 5 base crit chance. That's an item that I would be more willing to pick up if compared to if it was some, you know, tier 6 flat void or something. That's kind of what goes into my decision making as I pick up and clean up items. You can see there's a tier 6 poison on hit. The only reason I'm keeping it is because it's a max roll, because it has melee attack speed, and I'm pretty sure poison on hit is somewhat rare for maces. So those 3 things in combination made me keep it, but I don't love it, and at some point I might delete it. Then I have 2-handed maces, 3 tabs for that. Still lots of space in this third one. 3 tabs full with spears, 1-handed swords, and check out this one right here. This is one of my few double tier 7s. I think I have a scepter as well. There is a dual tier 7. But you can see it was found so long ago that one patch actually removed half of the forging potential of it. So you can see it's got only 17 FP. It's more of a trophy room item kind of thing. Then more 1-handed swords, 2-handed swords. These are the offhands. Offhand was too long of a word, so I ended up calling these tabs Meiji for whatever reason. Then I got me some wands. Check out these ones. I got these recently from the Giga Chest Lightless Arbor that I did. So you can see there's exactly 4 copies from 1 Giga Chest. And they're all tier 7 cast speed, almost perfect, shock on hit, lightning damage. Probably the lightning damage could be sealed on one of these 4. Thanks to RNGesus, hopefully it doesn't betray us on all 4 of them. But yeah, it's kind of nice when you have 4 of that item and you can YOLO it up a little bit. More ones, scepters. Here's my other dual tier 7 item. Again, there's really no synergy between those 2 bonuses, but it's still a good trophy room item. Then I have 3 tabs of staves. I really like staves, so I probably keep too many. 1 tab of daggers. I like to delete these ones as I find new ones, just to keep it at 1 tab. And you can see I've got a lot of trashy ones. And here's something else to consider, like this one, for example. It is a tier 6. However, the implicit synergizes really well with the suffix tier 6 of poison on hit. Notice that they're both poison on hit. So between the 2, you can run 127% chance poison on hit. you're much better off having this base dagger type compared to any other dagger type with tier 6 poison. So the implicit of the item type is something else that I take into consideration when I choose whether to keep tier 6s. And I have some bows here and more bows, and then 2 stashes of quivers. And then we get into the armor category. I put shields in there because they felt kind of armory, even though they're your offhand, I guess. Could have put them with the weapons, whatever. My favorite shield in here is my tier 7 all res one right here. Max roll as well, and block chance, and reduced damage taken on block. Just a phenomenal shield right there. And perfect for merging with, you know, let's say 4 LP shield if I ever get one. Then I've got the relics that can be used by any class. And then I have 1 stash tab for belts. Again, similar types stay together. So these are the mana types. And I'll show you my tier 7 potion. Here's 1 tier 7 chance to find potions belt. So you can see that I'm keeping them, a few here and there, just in case there's a patch that enables a build of some kind. Then I have boots. The best boot type is this one. So you can see I'm much more likely to keep a tier 6 boot from this type compared to these other types. And then these other types as well. I'm less likely to keep tier 6s. But yeah, 3 tabs of them. 3 tabs of gloves as well. The best glove type is most likely this one, just because of the high armor and the high implicit resistance. It takes care of your void res. So I really hope they increase the armor of some of these other gloves as well, just to make them more viable. These are not bad as well. The plated gauntlets, if you're running an endurance build, you can leverage them. And something else to consider when deciding whether to keep an item or not is the rarity of that tier 6 or tier 7 affix. So for example, here I've got tier 7 leech rate. That is an extremely rare affix. So even though it might not be the most useful, it's super rare, so I'm definitely keeping it. Obviously, tier 6, tier 7 hybrid health is something you always pick up, even if it's just tier 6. Hybrid health is such an overpowered affix. You want it in everything that can spawn with it. So here are the amulets and rings. I already went over those. And now we get into uniques. So I like to have them separated again based on type. So one-handed weapons is what I have here. Swords go together. Wands go together. Scepters go together. Maces go together. So everything is kind of intuitively organized to be easy to find. And here are all my axes. Oh, I see that Taste of Blood has changed in appearance as well. Very cool. And then we get into my two-handed weapons. So for example, just today I was testing out my Battle Mage's Endeavor. Check it out. This has to be one of the best Battle Mage Endeavors on the entire server. I mean, I guess it's offline, but who cares? The problem is the build is non-viable. It's just too weak. We need the chance to cast Lightning Blast to be doubled for this to be viable, I feel like. Anyway, I still like my Battle Mage Endeavor. Hopefully it sees some use one day. So you can see I like to keep the best rolls and the highest LP of every single item type. Here are some two-handed weapons. You can see my failed Judicator. I've got a 2 LP one. I was very sad that I hit that. Possibly, yeah, definitely the worst possible combination of affixes. And then there's this one, Turani's Bident, where I hit, you know, the best 2 possible affixes. So RNG sometimes hits you hard and sometimes can be generous. Oh, and I'll highlight on this tab my only 4 LP item that I've dropped over 1800 hours of gameplay. It is absolutely useless, so don't remind me of it. Although now, given that it's got requirement level of 0, it can be a decent leveling item. And then here's an item that I'm really excited for, the Shadow Beacon. 3 LP. I have the perfect build for it. So hopefully one day I get a chance to put the right exalted item into it. Here are my boots. Not very many with 2 LP. Here's one example. I have a Morning Frost with 2 LP that is seeing some use somewhere. I think I had a 2 LP, yeah, 2 LP Snowdrift right here. With regard to gloves, I have a couple of tabs now because there are just so many gloves, and Jorah gloves are quite abundant from Jorah, so I decided to keep a bunch of them. Then I've got my shield tab, chest armors, 2 tabs for them. I recently had to add another tab. And here I have all my rings and amulets. I try to keep them all in one tab, as well as the idols, I guess, unique ones. Got a red ring recently, as you saw in my YouTube video. I've got exactly 1 Orion's Eye. I have a 3 LP Bleeding Heart with a really good bleed setup prefixes. And I even have another 3 LP Bleeding Heart, but not a very good leech roll. Here's my favorite Strong Mind for my Static Ground build. And now we have relics here as well. Here's my failed 2 LP Stormcarved Testament. If only that prefix was tier 7 mana. Oh my goodness. Here's a really strong Vessel of Strife. Perfect tier 7 combo. A 3 LP Tome of Elements that I ended up using. Oh, and check out these Scales of Eterra. This is the highest cast speed offhand in the game. 26 plus 17% cast speed. Obviously, you can get it higher with tier 7 and perfect roll on the implicit, but this is how you get the highest cast speed offhand in the game. Belts and helms, I have them grouped together just because 1 tab is enough. Here's my scavenger ready for the chance to find potions rogue build. Here's a 2 LP Jungle Queens. Yeah, there's a few decent items in here. And then I've got bows. These haven't seen too much use. Quivers, similar thing. And here is my trophy room. When I started doing my 100 Eukaros kills challenge, I ended up keeping every single horn of Eukaros that I got. Just as a reminder of how many times I've killed this boss to get a 1 LP, 40% endurance horn of Eukaros. And you can see I'm getting close to filling up 2 stash tabs. Anyways, this is my stash setup. I hope that was useful to you. I hope you saw some cool items in there. All of them are self-found in offline mode, but self-found nonetheless. After this video, I'll make one last Epoch video before I switch over fully to D4. It's going to be a very special one, so keep an eye out. I think you're going to enjoy it. I think the community is going to appreciate it because it's going to showcase breaking new ground. Anyways, thank you, take it easy, and gochiso sama deshita.